And we are back.
Hello guys, Tartar Racing here with Steve, and we're going to be here for
Yeah.
another Seduce Me episode. This time it's called Happily Ever After, the big ol' wedding episode.
Do
So
we choose? Do we choose which one we want, which one it is right at the beginning? Then, considering
I
it
feel
includes all the guys.
I feel like it should be. I feel like that's what it should be. Hopefully that's how it works. Hopefully. So
Oh,
let's get on to the show, shall we?
yeah.
The venue was set. The preparations were complete. The day had finally arrived. What, was this really happening? I felt elation run through my entire body at the thought. I had waited for this day for years, and yet my mind still couldn't believe it. I had to keep telling myself, yes, this is happening. You're not dreaming. Are we gonna go with Park again, or are we just gonna do something new completely?
Uh, what's the name of that Filipino woman from Vanguard?
Isabella, my homegirl!
Yes.
My homegirl.
Yeah.
That's what my avatar is right now. My homegirl, Isabella.
Mixed with you.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's go.
I'm a bride. Let's just go with I'm a bride then.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just go with that. I was going to marry James.
Yeah. Yeah. By this point, it's always James.
Mm-hmm. James was the man I had always dreamt of marrying. He was, in essence, my prince come to reality. He was regal, yet never failed to make me feel like I was the only person in the world that mattered. My life had become a fairy tale, and I was in the midst of my happily ever after. I stood in my waiting room, staring at my reflection in the mirror. I couldn't take my eyes off myself. Was I imagining myself standing there? Did I die in the demon world and was now seeing a dream instead? No. There I stood, elegantly wrapped in a beautiful wedding gown. It was the dress of my dreams with a veil flowing elegantly behind me. I was regal, and I felt joy in my every fiber of my being just looking in the mirror. Diana's flower, still as healthy and magnificent as it had been the night I had received it, adorned my head and sat gracefully in the crook of my ear. I felt my body quiver in anticipation. My soul couldn't make up its mind on how to feel. I was ecstatic, joyful, and scared. Every emotion I knew hit me all at once, and I wasn't sure how to handle myself. I was going to walk down the aisle and see the man of my dreams at the end. All at once, every thought of today began to come alive in my head. Everyone was so supportive of me and my marriage that it shook me to the core. Naomi had made us a custom wedding cake, determined to give us the best celebration with her cooking skills. Suzu had organized a reception, and her family, as powerful as they were, ensured the security and safety of all the guests. My mom helped deliver invitations and guided my pre-wedding party, unable to stop herself from crying at the thought of her child being married. My dad even designed and dedicated a line of toys from Anderson Toys in celebration. It was a doll line focused around the theme of marriage and happiness, and with me and my husband as the focused figures. I knew he wasn't a man of many kind words, but I knew he poured his heart into it as proof of his joy for me. I even recalled dreams of my grandfather smiling at me, silently giving me his blessing and letting me know how proud he was to see me here, how I wished for him to stand with my family still, despite knowing he watched over me from heaven. I felt myself shake and began to cry. Everyone was so proud of me. I could predict my legs giving out. And they did. Thank God I was alone. I collapsed on the floor, holding my hand over my mouth as I delighted, and overwhelmed burbles escaped past my lips. This was happening. I had waited for so long. I couldn't control the rush of emotions pounding through me like a storm. My body was overthrown by my mental chaos, and I had to begin to break down. Was I capable of doing this? Was I strong enough? Yes. Yes, I was. Thinking back on it, I was strong enough to push through every obstacle in my path. I fought off a devil, stood my guard against the ground against the succubus. I had even gone to the demon world and escaped its world war to see this day come. My life had moved forward, me forward to this very moment, and I was a mess inside. Please don't wake me up if this is a dream. Not a dream, sweetie. That voice. I looked up into the mirror and gasped, tears escaping me again as my eyes locked onto a familiar face in the reflection. Diana? What are you doing on the floor? Pick yourself up. I know you can stand. I frantically stood, obeying her request as I stared, dumbfounded at her image. But aren't you? Diane chuckled, silencing me. She looked powerful and regal in the mirror, bathed in an almost godlike light. I am the queen of the demon world, my dear. I have my ways for communicating with you. Diana. My heart began to squeeze tightly in my chest. How I wished for her to physically be here to see my wedding. I'll be watching, I promise. I secretly waited for this day too. I watched as Diana lifted her hand and caressed the air in front of her with the back of her hand. To my surprise, I felt a slight breeze brush against my cheek in tandem, wiping it off my tears. Diana smiled and lowered her hand, stepping forward towards me. May you be happy and may fortune stand with you forever. At last, Diana leaned forward and kissed the air softly. I felt a soft, airy pressure on my forehead, causing more tears to run down my cheeks and my heart to squeeze in the joy of the action. Slowly, she faded away from the mirror, leaving me to face my reflection. My face was red and I could hear my heart beating loudly from the emotions rushing through me. I was getting married and the world was waiting for me. I took a deep breath and let out a sigh, slowly but surely calming the nerves and dancing along my spirit. As a small knock echoed from my door, I could feel my nerves attempt to kick up once again, but I closed my eyes and calmed them down with another breath. I was ready. I was going to attain my happy end. The hall was full of people. Many I knew and many I didn't. I stood at the doorway leading into the space and stared at the door in front of me, imagining everyone waiting for me. My parents, my friends, the incubi, my husband-to-be. The second the doors would open would be the second my walk towards my future began. I was no longer going to be alone. I would have him standing by me as I would stand by him through anything the universe threw at us. The doors opened at last, and I took in the beautiful sight of the wedding hall at last. Everyone stood and watched as I slowly made my way down the aisle. Music began to fill the air at my march, and gazes followed with each step I made forward. My heart began to pound in my chest. I began to imagine everyone hearing it as loud as powerful as it was. Still, I'd continue on. I would not stop walking until I reached the end. My gaze, however, locked itself onto my husband-to-be. He stared in awe at my approach, lost in his own thoughts. What was on his mind? James visibly took a breath and at the sight of me, a very soft blush painting his cheeks. Still, he smiled and maintained his regal posture, ready to stand beside me like the prince he was to me. As I finally reached him, James held his hand out to me. I took it in kind, walking to stand behind him at last. We were lucky. Kay, the owner of the Pink Lady Cafe and a dear friend, was licensed to officiate the wedding, so she took it upon herself to do so without a fee of any kind. According to her, this was something she desperately wanted to do for us as a wedding gift. I was very thankful to have her be part of my next chapter. Kay gestured for everyone behind us to sit down in the pews, clearing her throat slightly and bringing up a microphone to her lips, beginning the ceremony. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here to join these two beautiful souls in matrimony. They have supported and loved each other and have chosen to continue doing so for the rest of their lives. Standing beside James made my heart flutter in joy. I could hear our hearts synchronizing in time, and our breaths slowly marched up in equal excitement. Staring into his eyes, I became lost in my thoughts as I listened. It is said that love is a story all on its own. Affection gives us the right action. Our dreams give us our purpose. And we experience a world we never imagined exploring. The best thing is that we don't have to explore it alone. This moment right now is a chapter of that story, and you have many things left to write together. I smiled. She was right. This wasn't an ending by any means. This was the beginning of our life together, a life James and I would have shared and right for as long as we lived. He smiled back. I knew he agreed. And now, my favorite part. We would like to take this time to exchange wedding vows. Kay gestured to me, ushering to me softly clear my throat and begin. I had so many things to say to this man. I hadn't known where to begin when I first tried to write up my vow. After months of hoping and thinking, I finally knew what to say. James, you and I have been through so much. You have supported me ever since we met, and our love has broken through every obstacle in our path. I cannot dream of a life without you in it. You make me happy, happier than I ever could ever dream of being. It was like you were sent to me as a miracle. James could only smile and listen, but I could almost hear his heart beat wildly for me at my words, with small bubbles of tears forming at the corner of his eyes. I continued. I want to keep going through life with you as your one and only. You are my best friend, my love, my world. With you, we can reach the skies and sail forever. Just you and me. I love you. Kay bit her lip, obviously holding back her tears, before nodding at my conclusion and turning to James. And now, your vow. Go ahead. James smiled and held my hands close, letting his gaze melt in my eyes as he spoke at last.
Okay. Took a while for my voice lines to come up.
Oh yeah.
Not as bad as first episode of Seduce Me 1, but 40 minutes. You are the moon, stars, and sun of my life. There's not a day that goes by where I do not think of you and how much you mean to me. You give my life so much meaning. I am humbled to know that my love for you is reciprocated.
I slowly began to cry. James' words melted in my heart, and I could see the love glowing in his eyes. His smile, I was truly in love.
I promise to love you and cherish you as long as we live, and to spend the rest of my life giving you the happiness you deserve as your husband.
Just from staring into James' eyes, I could tell that our heartbeats and breaths were matched perfectly in time. There was nothing in the universe that could stop us from being happy, and this moment was picture perfect. I freely let myself cry as I smiled. He did the same for me, holding my hands lovingly. You both had just made my job easier with these vows. So let's put on these rings. Kay quickly turned back to the table behind her and presented us with my ring first. With glowing pride and slight nervous quivering in his hands, James gingerly took the ring and began to slide it up my ring finger. Please repeat after me. With this ring, I give all myself to you. I will protect you and be with you no matter what until time stands still. As quick as her statements came, the images of our adventures and struggles passed through my mind. We had fought a devil, foiled a succubus, and stopped a world war together, and our story was far from over.
With this ring, I give you all of myself to you. I will protect you and be with you, no matter what, until time stands still.
As the ring finally crested on my finger, I couldn't help but wiggle it in glee atop James' hand, making him chuckle a bit at the feel. The band shimmered on my hand in the church light, almost entrancing me. Excellent. Now, it's your turn. Kay slowly held out the second ring for me to take. This was my moment. I quickly took the ring in excitement and began to ease it up James' finger. With this ring, I give all myself to you. I will protect you and be with you no matter what until time stands still. In that moment, when the ring reached its destination, I could feel the world stop around us. Something in the air felt warm and bright. It was like everything had become right in the universe, and I was able to see a future full of opportunity and bliss. I became so lost that I barely acknowledged that the ceremony was finally coming to a close, the one that I had been waiting for. Alright, awesome. Alrighty then. By the power vested in me, in front of your beloved friends and family, it is my honor and privilege to pronounce you two united in perfect matrimony. Let the moon shake tonight. At last. James smiled and clapped a gentle fist over his mouth, laying his rings shining the light between us as he softly smiled in joy. He had happily given his entire life to me, and I would hold him close forever. Now hurry up and kiss already. You know you wanna. I want you to as well. She did not have to tell me twice. With a thankful grin and euphoric heart, I took James into my arms and kissed him with every ounce of love I could muster. Fireworks went off in my head, and I'd feel the world around me close, leaving only James and me in a peaceful space all our own. Our kiss marked the beginning of a new life together, and I was happy that the next chapter would begin on my terms. I had a feeling that no more problems would come our way, and even if they somehow did, we'd have the power to get over them. If our meeting didn't prove that, then our struggles and victories would. The cameras and cheers would mark our memories in time. The bands we wore would leave their permanence on our skins. And we would fly as high as our love could take us. Truly, this was my... No, it wasn't just mine. This was our happily ever after. The end.